Richard Woodruff is a British Cossack volunteering in Ukraine since June 2022. He's involved in Frontline kit, both in the areas of humanitarian and military aid. Richard was awarded for his contribution to the AFU by General Valerii Zaluzhnyi. And I've also had the privilege to meet him at the Silicon Curtain event in Lviv in August of this year. I was incredibly pleased, Richard, that you were able to come along and be part of that.
I'm happy to be here. One thing I would say though, Jonathan, is we've transitioned to FLK or Frontline kit now. The reason being is that we're not currently involved in the manufacture. Well, we are involved in the manufacture of energy bars and jerkies for the front. So there is still an element of food, but it's been such a crazy journey over these past few months. And effectively, we do absolutely everything for everyone in Ukraine. And that is why the title is KIT, because it is a summary catch-all for literally everything that we do now. Yeah, it's kind of funny because there isn't anything that we don't do, and there are sometimes we have to stop ourselves and go, yeah, let's not start getting involved in, I don't know, making explosives, for instance.
Yeah, or rescuing puppies. There are other people who do that.
You always rescue puppies.
And does that reflect a wider shift? Because it does seem that the focus is very much now shifting on supporting the military more, identifying gaps in things like tourniquets, as you say, sort of high energy foods, etc., especially as we enter winter. And I've also seen the incredible pictures of you on Twitter knitting camo netting. So have you noticed this sort of shift to supporting the front line and a greater realization actually in Ukraine that by supporting soldiers, you're also protecting and saving the lives of civilians?
Yes. So one of the really big things and one of the big changes is, as you were saying, it's an always developing picture of what is actually needed at the front. And at the very beginning of the war, so when I came over, everyone was just loading trucks full of Vareniki and just any food that they had to just ship in these massive artillery lorries to the front lines, because a million guys were just instantly mobilized to head to the front. And it was like, okay, well, obviously there isn't a supply network built up to handle this. So yeah, back then it was always just how much can we get to the front as possible. And that was where you saw these big bags of dehydrated food going to every part. But now that the front line has been so stagnant over the past, probably like 8 or 9 months that the line hasn't even moved, what you actually found, and what I found when we went down to the front, is you have these military bases, but then like 5 kilometers away, you just have the center of a normal town. So on base, you have these amazing like cafeterias, and they have like opening hours and everything. It's still a tent, so it's not a full cafeteria, but they have like opening hours, and then they can just go buy fresh produce. And I had the most amazing horechka of my entire life on a military base. And back then the guy was kind of laughing at me, being like, see, we don't need like these big bags, we can cook our own food really tasty. And I was really defensive, going, what are you on about? And then it was kind of coming to this realization that yeah, at the beginning there was this need for vast amounts, but because there hasn't been a movement, now what we're focusing on is trench nutrition, because that's somewhere still that you can't just take food into the trench and cook it, because obviously you can't be putting off a heat source or anything like that. So that's when you get into stuff where you're talking about like energy bars or crackers, or it's just something that you don't have to cook prior to eating. And I mean, the local epicenter, they have these kind of MRE pouches with their self-heating stuff. So you don't need to bring a stove along with you, and it's a single serve portion, so you can just press a button or pouch or however it works, and then chuck it away after. But one of the most horrifying things was they said, the reason why we want these energy bars and these energy drinks is because they can't deal with the smell, the fumes coming off the food. The reason being is because of the rotting corpses of their friends and the enemy that was on the field in front of them. So just the smell would make them retch and vomit. So they were just saying, please, is there anything that's kind of neutral that doesn't put off a smell? And yeah, as the energy bars, as the crackers, it's these energy drinks. So it's not the most healthy diet, but it's that or nothing, because you just can't, you can't operate as a normal human being and function.
That's a horror.
So yeah,
That's a horrible
that's
impression.
the
That's
kind
very
of,
vivid and horrible. I guess, like the
yeah.
First World War as well. You know, rats are going to be a problem when you have static trench warfare and where you have, you know, corpses and all the detritus of war around.
Yeah. Yes, and that's how the in the food sphere things have kind of shifted since the beginning of the war, from like large packets to single serve portions and energy bars, and you know it's stuff that isn't made on a mass scale, and then therefore needs to be done on a smaller level. But what else did you say about? You said about tourniquets, was it?
Tourniquets, yes, that there's been a lot of conversations around that, and I read an interesting article about the quality or the sourcing of frontline
Yeah.
supplies, and of course the Minister of Defense was forced to resign because of a scandal around, you know, suboptimal quality of these. Now, of course, a lot of this stuff is coming through not necessarily the state, but through sort of volunteer societies. So what, you know, you've shifted from the production of hot food to,
Yeah.
you know, the essentials, but also there are changing supply lines and changing charitable sort of requirements around medical supplies, are they? What have you seen around that?
Yeah, so geez, at the beginning, probably 6 months in, we were still receiving tourniquets that were the Chinese tourniquets. But when they were getting sent to them, I did ask them. I said, "So I assume these are training ones that you're sending us?" Because I was getting, you know, boxes of hundreds and hundreds of the fake ones. And every time we got a box through, I would, of course, even if I knew 100% it was fake, I'd take one out, put it on, and turn it, and then it would snap within 3 goes, and I'd everyone, there'd be, you know, 20 international volunteers there. I'll go, this kills people. And straight away you see in their brain, they're like, crap. Like they just have this instant realization, because lots of them had brought along, you know, tourniquets from Germany, France, and they've gone, oh, these are approved by our military or something, or the supplier said that these are approved by this. I'm like, look, if it's not cat, it's not good enough. If it's not Sitch, it's not good enough. And like I personally and our teams, when we were on the front, we were carrying the Nipro ones. And there's lots of like controversy now of people going, Nipro isn't good enough, you know, it's not being certified and everything. And we hear from the front and they say, hey, please get us the Nipro ones. You know, they're really, really good tourniquets. And we were always carrying them. I tested them a million times. Nothing ever broke. And our logic was always, if it's working 99% of the time compared to the 100% of the time of the cap tourniquets, but it costs half of the amount, it's like, that's just simple statistics. If you can get it to double the amount of soldiers, you've saved thousands and thousands of lives. Because the thing that was killing all of our guys is the Chinese tourniquets. Every time you'd see a video, you'd see the white label on the supposed cap tourniquet, and the ones are actually like a grey color. So you'd instantly know it was fake. And I would be driving even through Kherson, and you'd see all of the guys on the border points, and they would also have the fake tourniquets on them. And I'd just be like, screw that. Give me your tourniquet now. I'll say this is the border checkpoint. Give me your tourniquet and take this Nipro one. And it was just amazing that, like, no matter where you are, everywhere you looked, there were these fake Chinese tourniquets. And none of them lasted. There wasn't one that I tried that managed to cut the blood off, or not snap or not rip. So yeah, geez, insane. But now I think people, at least on Twitter, are getting the message of don't buy cheap crap tourniquets. But yeah, we're still having kind of internal battles here where, you know, some of us are saying, yeah, Nipro is fine. And then others are going, no, it's crap. But yeah, I still don't understand. There was one very prominent figure that messaged on my Twitter saying it's crap. And like, I kind of respect his opinion, But yeah, everyone else that's just trying to destroy the brand for some reason. I don't get it. But yeah, they've been working perfectly. I don't know if have you seen the different ones? Do you have any at your
I
home?
haven't.
Maybe.
No, I haven't. I haven't seen those.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I need to get them for you. We need to get you a cat, a Stitch, and a Nipro so you can hold them up and say, hey, here are the differences.
get some pictures. We can post it on the community section of
Yeah.
the channel. And I think that as an education piece, that's important. And that's an incredibly interesting because it also reflects a certain struggle, doesn't it? Perhaps in Ukrainian society to not just sort of get things done, but to actually really do the right thing and for people to really think and act. And as you say, test stuff. And of course, it embodies the fight against sort of corruption and inferior quality products. Do you see a huge pressure then from people who are at the front, their relatives, and this so-called civil society? Do you see that sort of really activating to fight, laziness, graft, corruption, incompetence?
Do I see them trying to fight corruption? Yeah, every second of every day. There have been multiple very stressful occasions that I will talk about, after the war. But yeah, there are people, and yeah, very simply, not naming names, but you're trying to bring in a truck full of humanitarian aid, and the military administration goes, "Yeah, where's our pallet? Where's our cut?" And you're like, "What the are you talking about? You are literally stealing from your own starving population. It's just mental, and just so they can put it in the back of their X5 or something, so they can load up." But safe to say that was at some point last year, and we very, very quickly took that to the very top of the Ukrainian government. I was like, "Hey, by the way, here are the names of the people that you can sort out, because yeah, we have no alliances. We just don't want to see corruption anywhere." Yeah, so there's a constant battle and fight in every sphere, and currently in Lviv there are marches where people are going, "Hey, we want drones, not stadiums," because they would repair a fountain, and people would go, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, we want our guys to have drones." And I see it as well, and I'm like, I'm spending all of my time just trying to fundraise for the smallest thing, and yeah, you might spend $10,000 doing a statue or a fountain or something, and it's like, your own people are dying. What the hell's going on? But I don't know the solution to these things. If we should let towns decay to a point where it costs more after to help the soldiers now. But yeah,
I guess
so yeah,
there's a balance there. I mean, there's also, you have these fears that certain projects might happen because it's in somebody's interests, and maybe the contractor is a cousin of somebody or other. I'm sure this stuff kind of goes on, but I think what's fascinating is the fight against it, because of course, if you were to fight against corruption in Russia, you'd become part of a motorway flyover or fall out of a window or something.
Yeah.
You don't have that same broad, I would say, public coalition to call this stuff out and fight it. That I think, for those people who are thinking like, "Oh my God, Ukraine is corrupt after all," I mean, that's not news. What is news is how you fight it and how you come together as a society and develop the processes, culture, and institutions to tackle it. So has that been an uplifting experience for you, seeing how that develops and evolves?
I think you summed it up perfectly, is that the Ukrainians have complete freedom to be able to voice their opinion on any of this. And there's never been one single crackdown or anything else on Ukrainians voicing their opinions in the slightest. Yeah, it's just a free society.
You shared an interesting comment last night, and that is that there are a number of films coming out, which I think people really need to watch, especially those who feel like they're disengaging from Ukraine, or they're not sure what's going on or what it's all about anymore. And one of those films, for me at least, I haven't watched it all. I don't think I can watch it all in one go, and that's 20 Days in Mariupol. For me, it's just like a punch in the gut. The stuff's happening, but it's visceral and it's immediate, and it's incredibly powerful. I know you've seen that film. So what are your reactions to that? Because you've probably seen a a lot of this actually in real life, not just on film.
Yeah. It was hard because all of the comments I saw on Twitter prior to watching it, and I tried to watch it, geez, like 3-4 months ago. I was scouring everywhere, going, there must be somewhere I can watch this, because I saw it was being previewed in all these cinemas, but there was no way, there was no copy of it online at all. And then I saw everyone on Twitter's comments about it, saying how horrific the film was. And I hadn't watched it yet, even though I'd waited so long to watch it. And the reason was because I wanted to watch it with my friend from Kharkiv. I promised him, I was like, we'll watch it together. So we did last night. That was what we were doing at 12 o'clock at night, but over the phone. So I had my earpiece in, and we watched the whole thing, the hour and a half together, to experience it for the first time. Everything that she had seen, but I had seen as well. And yes, there were moments of absolute horror where you were seeing the young boy that was playing soccer that had his legs blown off, and then they couldn't save him, or the little dead girls. And it's just, those moments just completely break me. And every time, and regardless of this movie, because a lot of the stuff in the movie, we'd seen so many clips online, because I'd binge watched everything that was ever Ukrainian since the beginning of the war. So not only had I seen the footage of this destruction, but I'd been there. I'd been to Kupiansk, I'd been to Izium, I'd been down in Kherson. We'd seen all of these areas that had been completely obliterated. I was in the home of a babushka when the mortar shell came through the roof. A bucket of red paint exploded everywhere, so it looked like it was blood. There was still heat coming off of the building. And this little old lady, she couldn't get her husband out in time. The roof collapsed on him. He suffocated under the rubble, and she couldn't dig him out. And I'm standing in the living room of this woman when she recounts the story of what happened 12 hours earlier. And I just completely break down, because it brings the reality of all of the clips in that film to life. Because I'd seen all of those places, but I didn't know what it meant at that point. And once you're standing in it, happening real time, then you go, wow, this is what happened in Bucha. This is what happened in Izium, because you're in that exact moment at the exact time when their whole world collapses. Everything that they had built had been destroyed, and their partner's dead, buried under the rubble. And so that's why probably seeing 20 Days in Mariupol was horrific, for seeing the children dead, but the rest of the destruction, it was just a normal chapter in the day-to-day life of being in Ukraine. Sorry, I was getting a bit choked up there.
Yeah, no, sure. And I mean, I should move on to lighter subjects, but it's yeah. I mean, there aren't that many lighter subjects. I mean, I know Ukrainians love food, humor, dance, and they love so many things that are life-affirming. But of course, what's happening is horrific and criminal. And this is a big difference I'm sort of seeing in some of the debate in the West. And, as a Brit, you travel backwards and forwards as well, and you sort of see the differences between how Ukrainians see the world and those who are sympathizing, hopefully like most of the audience on this channel. And you see the sort of slightly more academic debates taking place in the media and so on. And I heard a particularly horrific phrase by somebody who is, an extremely eminent person, dare I say it. I mean, I won't say in what profession and so on, but he was making the case that in every war in history, eventually you have to trade justice for peace, that somehow you have to sort of let things go, etc., be less emotional. I've not met a single Ukrainian who is prepared to sacrifice justice for anything. What's your impression of this kind of dissonance from what you hear in the West and what you see in here in Ukraine?
I think very, very quickly, when anyone makes those kind of suggestions in the West, people slap it down on Twitter as the nonsense that it is, because there is no negotiation with a terrorist state that's still occupying part of your land. And And since the beginning of getting here, I always thought the exact same as Ukrainians. I thought, no, we will never relent. We will never give up, no matter what. And then I went to the military hospital. I went to the local military hospital, and I saw these guys with half a skull, with no arms, no legs, and it just completely broke me. This guy, he was having kind of like therapy, but he couldn't move anything. He couldn't talk, and they were just attempting to move his arms up and down to give him some kind of exercise. And he had these horrendous bed sores. And this person, the only way I could describe it was Auschwitz, in terms of the body was so incredibly thin and frail. And in this moment, I thought, like, how do we say to people to continue this? Like, how can we go until the last man, until the last Ukrainian, we will fight? And then you realize there's not an option. Like, there isn't an option. We have to do this, otherwise it's everyone, you know? So you see this horror of this young guy, with half a skull and no arms, and you have to say, yeah, we have to carry this on. We have to keep doing this, because otherwise it's all of them, it's all the women, all the children. It's Bucha, but on the scale of all of Ukraine. And it's really hard, because in that military hospital, I wanted to go, fuck this, no more war, let's stop this, whatever. And then you just think for 10 seconds further and you go, yeah, we can't. And that's the most horrifying thing, is that we're losing the best of Ukrainian humanity, the best of the world, the best people. And all Russia is losing is these murderers that choose to come and kill little kids. Where we're losing those that have said, I am willing to die for you, my friend, for my country, to give everything. And yeah, so that's why it's so painful when you hear on the news people going, oh yeah, we should do some peace deal or whatever else. Or we should find some kind of negotiations. No, Russia needs to fuck off. That's what needs to happen. There's no alternative. Just leave, and then everything will be good. And I'm sure the world will try and fix the relationship with Russia, because that's what everyone wants to do. We just want peace, and we want to forget all of this. But Russia just needs to fuck off, and then we can figure out a way to get around it. No, I don't. I want to shut Russia off behind a wall and never see it again. But I understand the international community will want to give them a chance. And it's just like, just leave. And then, maybe you'll have some chance of re-entering normality in the next 100 years. Yeah, but until then, we see the same situation, the dead husbands of grandmothers, the dead soldiers, the dead kids, the scenes out of Mariupol, which is shocking the world right now, on repeat.
And of course, people can rationalize this by saying, well, it's Ukraine, it's far away, they're not us. But I think when you're there, and when you start to realize that Ukrainian values are not just aligned with our own, in some ways they have a vigor to their democracy, which is in transition, which we could actually learn from. When you realize that Russia is not just attacking Ukraine, it is attacking what it sees as an entire system of values. Do you think, and essentially it's attacking them as a proxy to attack us, do you think that's really properly understood? Because Russian propagandists, if you listen to them, I have the misfortune to be able to listen to the propagandists in the original, and it's quite clear they consider themselves at war with the West. Britain preeminently among it. We are considered the old enemy. They assign us far too much agency than we don't actually have.
But they don't they?
Yeah, they consider themselves at war with us, but we perhaps have not realized it, and we're certainly not acting as if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, there's never been a country that I've been to that we've been more similar. Actually, I think that I don't want to seem mean, but I think the Ukrainian people are actually better than us. There hasn't been a country before that I've gone to where you're just so instantly welcomed and loved, and everyone is so kind and compassionate, and they would give you their last meal, their last seat, everything. They're the most generous, amazing people on the planet, and they truly openly love you. There's no there's no, am I better than you? There's no, I don't know, all of this materialism stuff that we have in the rest of Europe, where we need to kind of show how amazing we are. It's Ukraine. It's just love your neighbor and feed your neighbor and do everything for every other person. And yeah, their values are um, British, but jumped up to like an amazing level. Maybe Britain in the good old days. I don't know. I don't know what it was like back then, but it's just such a incredibly lovely society and world to be in. And yeah, maybe that's why I find it weird any time I take a single step out of Ukraine. And I think, I don't know if it's because of the war. I spoke to my good friend Dimko about this. I said, everyone's so kind of connected now, where it wasn't like that before the war, from what I had been told. And he was like, no, Ukraine had always been very connected, whether it was Kharkiv or Lviv. It was Russian narrative that we were divided in the past, that these areas are Russian in some way. And yeah, everyone, it's kind of like a hive mind now. We all work together because we're all at war, and we all have each other's backs all the time. And if anyone needs anything, there's someone there that will help. There's always a solution to a problem, and it's never a we can't do that. That doesn't exist in the Ukrainian vocabulary. If something needs to do it, we'll find out a way. Like we just saw with the energy infrastructure workers, the fact that they can repair a whole power grid in a couple of hours and get it all back up and running. And in England, right, that would take, as you know, that would take a year to even start the work after they've finished the
Fix the
paperwork.
road as well,
Exactly.
I talk of that living in Oxford, which at the moment, the centre of town is blocked off for 2 years because they're rebuilding the rail bridge. You've got other roads blocked off. At one point, we couldn't even get out of our village because there's like they're digging everything up and taking their jolly time about it. Ukraine seems to be very action oriented, dare I say it.
Yeah, we need to be, because I guess these projects are essential to all life. And yeah, if the other option is residents in Lviv not having any water or power for a day, and those power workers aren't going to sleep until it's back up and running. And I guess that's the difference in England. It's just like, oh well, you work it out, you figure it out, and you'll be fine until we eventually fix it. Where here they're like, no one should suffer even for a second. We're going to get this done, and we're going to work all through the night. And it's always, there's never a stop to working. And I mean, especially in the volunteering community too. All of us work 24/7 now. And there's not a single volunteer that I know that's out here that goes, oh, I'm going to take a day off. Because it's like, what is a day off? You would take a day off and you would be like, this is horrible. I'm not doing anything. I'm not contributing. I need to do something. And you just start itching like, oh, this is weird. Yeah, God, the volunteers are amazing out here.
And there are foreign volunteers. I mean, how vibrant is the foreign international community there? Well, we're going to come on to nafo in a minute, because that's another extended. But let's talk about the direct action sort of volunteers who are on the ground, some of whom I had the sort of privilege to meet, like Noel Tock and others, in August.
Yeah, so thanks to the site I'm always banging onto you about, volunteeringukraine.com. There are, I think it's about 2,000 extra volunteers that have come to Ukraine. And the reason being is it's so easy and accessible now to figure out where to volunteer. Where when I came, I was scouring through Facebook and Instagram, and there was no real listing as to who we could help. Where now, when a listing is posted on Volunteering Ukraine, within, I think it's about an hour, they have 30 new volunteers internationally that have signed up from all around the world, every country, to come help. And it's just mind-blowing. And in Kyiv, it's called Kyiv Kitchen Hub Ants. I don't know how to say the name in Ukrainian, but it translates to ants. And they are overwhelmed. This past week, they've been filming videos and uploading it onto Facebook, being like, "Oh, we have an international volunteer from Austria," and like they just give the biggest hugs to these people because they're just gobsmacked that people have come from every corner of the planet. And yeah, no one's here for a wrong reason. Every volunteer that has come has the complete best intentions at heart, and they are willing and want to dedicate every second of every day to helping whatever cause it is, whether it's rebuilding with Doprobat in Kyiv or camo net making in Lviv. It's everyone dedicates all their time every day, and I guess they're rewarded with the fact that we have these military guys that come in to pick up the net, to pick up a bit of food. And they tell us and they say, because of this camo net, we survived. We lived. They said, these handmade ones are so much better in terms of camouflage that the unit next door to us that had machine-made ones all died. The guys died. They were hit by a rocket. And he said, like, no, I can't guarantee that it was this net, but my God, the difference it makes in terms of actually seeing it over a tank. And I uploaded a photo yesterday saying, like, spot the sniper, because you can't see them when they have this camo. And right now, as you know very well, the whole war is based around these FPV drones, and it's just complete drone warfare and constantly flying into each other. And the reality is now we need to make everyone disappear. We need to make it so you can't see people with these FPV drones, or you can't see people with the normal spotter drones. Obviously, if they have thermal imaging cameras, it's a different game. But yeah, it's so important that we kind of make our guys invisible, because this is really going to save the lives more than anything, because they have the tourniquets now in most places. They have the proper medical supplies, but they don't have stuff that's going to protect them from these, kamikaze drones.
And of course, Russia wants an attritional war. It doesn't place any value on its own people. It's quite willing to expend them like material. Ukraine both cannot afford to do it, but it's also really the antithesis of Ukrainian values. So how many people are involved in the sort of camo net industry now?
Well, we have, I think it's about eight different listings for around Lviv on the volunteeringukraine.com site. So different locations where people can go. And, some have 2 or 3 little old ladies working on them. And then others have kind of 20 people or so. And the one that I go to can take like another 5-10 people, but constantly all day long, there's a buzz and hum of people around there. So yeah, we're making so many nets, which is probably like 3 or 4 large nets per day that can cover the size of a tank. And yeah, it's just incredible. And one nice thing about this project is I just put out a tweet about the helmet covers. And these things weigh 150 grams, and you can make them on I think it's like 70 by 70 centimeter square wooden box at home whilst you're watching your television. So anyone in any country can now make these and send them off. And of course, we have, hundreds of thousands of soldiers, and a lot of them will need to disappear once again. So this is a cool little thing that I've managed to outsource to Twitter and said, hey guys, who wants to build these nets? And lots of people are like, I've always, since the beginning of the war, I've wondered how I could physically help from my country. And now they've, for the first time, which is quite shocking, in 650 days or so, people have had a way that from their own home, they can make something that will directly save the life of a soldier. Very cool.
That's incredible. Well, we're going to put the links into the video of that as well. Another phenomenon, which I know you're sort of heavily appreciative of and involved in, is NAFO. And you've been posting some fantastic videos of, say, the 69th Sniffing Brigade. You've got these incredible trucks and vehicles that are being brought in, graphic with NAFO. How important is it physically that this exists, but also psychologically, because it does connect Ukraine with the world and that sense of resistance as well?
Very much so. And I'm the nafo chef, so I've been family, and I've probably spoken to more nafo fellas than anyone else on all of Twitter, because since day one, I was private messaging with every single person. When it was a few hundred to a few thousand followers, and I was making sure every day that I'd speak to everybody because I was so fascinated about their stories and their support for Ukraine from all around the world. So yeah, I know so many of these amazing people in this amazing community. And nafo is everything to me. I mean, without nafo, there would be no Frontline kit on Twitter. Like, we just would not exist. Yeah, just family. And yeah, now of course you've seen that we're adorning all of the trucks and vans and everything with it, and it does make you smile when you're a few miles from the very front and you see this nafo van come screeching past you, and you're like, oh, they're one of us. They're our friends. And the community is so positive on Twitter and so loving that for the first year, I remember. Oh no, it wasn't the first year. It was up till the first 10,000 subscribers. I didn't have a single message of hate in DMs or anything like that. And it was quite funny because it was like 10,001 person. And then I got my first message being like, I hate you, whatever. And I was like, okay. But I was always saying to Dimko and these other people with large accounts that approached me and said, oh, how do you deal with the hate? How do you deal with all these horrible messages? And I said, I haven't had one yet. Like, there's no one. And it's because it was a nafo community. And every single person that was following me was one of these little Shiba dogs. And they were just the most supportive, Ukraine loving people out there. Yeah, and through all of the hate and drama that you now get, I've always said, as long as nafo is with me and my family is there for me, then everyone else can get lost. Like, I don't care, but as long as my nafo family that's been with me since the very beginning and shown me so much love and understanding, I'll be happy. And yeah, honestly, I'm nothing at all without nafo, and I've said that a million times in a million different tweets. And that's why I've never once changed my profile picture. It's always been the exact same dog. So yeah, and I remember my friend trying to explain to me what nafo was in a bar. Oh no, in a coffee shop, actually, I should say, a year ago. And he was explaining, like, oh, these dogs, you buy something from St. Javelin, you donate to this cause, and then they make you a dog. And I'm like, what's this got to do with Ukraine? This makes no sense. Like, how does this help Ukraine? And then he was explaining and vatniks and bonking, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. And after 3 or 4 hours more, I finally understood. But I now think back to that every time someone says, I don't know what nafo is. And then I'm like, you don't know what nafo is? And then I remember I didn't know what it was. And it took me 3 hours to get the most basic grasp of what the hell was going on.
And the memes are very good at fighting disinformation narratives, because one of the features, isn't it, of this war, we've all become, unfortunately, far too familiar with Russian bullshit. And as Pekka Kalioniemi, who is very good at dissecting this, he calls it the fire hose of falsehood. I mean, you think you've got one narrative nailed, and up they come with another piece of bullshit. It's very effective at fighting it, not fact-checking, which actually doesn't really work that well, but just fighting with humor, satire, and even insults. I mean, it's effective, but also it's quite uplifting, isn't it?
Yeah, and that really works when it's the ones that the comments that are just so stupid. And normally people would get into that battle and do the back and forth commenting, but nafo just goes, "You're stupid," and just it's some funny meme, as you just said. But they are also very good, and that is the main and key goal, is to fight Russian disinformation. So, as you were saying, with the 20 days in Mariupol, there was the scene from the maternity hospital, and the biggest thing was Russia came out and said, this is all staged, this is all Hollywood and everything. And nafo was able to combat on Twitter, at least, to say, no, that's bullshit. We have all of the reasons why, we have the evidence, and could actually fight it in a proper way. Unfortunately, the rest of Western media and Facebook and Instagram doesn't have nafo. So yeah, there was doubt that was spread back then. Russia and its media machine worked to get people to go, oh, maybe this is all fake, which is horrible. But the people on Twitter and nafo knew the truth. And Yeah, so at least Twitter's a safe space in terms of getting the right information, because, you know, if it's wrong, there'll be a little dog on the comment section going, "Shut up, Vatnik." Yeah.
And so obviously you're part of this volunteering group. It's transformed, it's transforming based on the requirements on the front line. How are you gearing up for winter, and how do you see the next sort of couple of months panning out? What are going to be your priorities?
Yeah, so we're still working on the manufacture of hand warmers, actually, because last year we were buying so many of them up, but now we're working with a certain place, of which I cannot state because then it'll become a military target. But we're planning on actually manufacturing all of this stuff ourselves and sending it off. So we have the test units, and hopefully we can, with the correct machinery, just ramp up to a crazy scale. So really the focus is on going to be keeping our guys happy and healthy over the winter period, and obviously once again making sure they're hidden, and that was the change from green camo netting to white, so that they can't be seen, because of course over winter and when it's like minus 20 degrees, there's not too much fighting that can actually be going on, because you can't actually physically do it. Both sides, it becomes a kind of stalemate. So yeah, over the winter period, we need to keep them warm, we need to keep them hidden and safe, and do everything that we can in a technology kind of way to mean that they can continue to fight, mainly through drones over the winter period, you know, when they can't physically go out there because it's not possible. Because yeah, across that Eastern Front, you are talking minus 20 plus. It's insane how cold it gets down there. So yeah, keeping our guys happy, healthy, warm, safe, and giving them means and technology to fight, especially in electronic warfare. We're doing a lot in terms of the development of devices ourselves, which is crazy because you think they have military industrial complexes that figure this stuff out and work out how to jam stuff. But we have a lot of smart people as a nafo community, and I'm sure there are some computer engineers out there that go, "Oh, I know how this stuff works." So yeah, currently we're making some kind of jamming devices, loads of different things. There are things that obviously I can't say about, but effectively it's all based around drone warfare and how we can make them the most efficient and effective over the winter period as well, because that brings so many more troubles of cold temperatures and whatnot.
Incredibly important, yeah, and it not only saves lives, but also attriting the Russian logistics and supply lines is making their invasion less tenable. I mean, the last question I want to ask is, and of course, you know, volunteering incredibly important. Hopefully, people will be inspired by your story. If people are considering not just supporting remotely, but actually want to come and do something on the ground, how would you advise them to go about that?
100%. Just visit volunteeringukraine.com, or just Google how to volunteer in Ukraine, and it'll be the first listing that will come up straight away. And it has a 4-block step-by-step guide that says, you know, plan your travel, find your volunteering opportunity, where will you stay, and then kind of connect with the locals on the ground. And all of the volunteering opportunities are listed there. And what is nice is I have personally been to every single one of those opportunities and checked out to make sure it is legitimate, because the last thing you want to do when you're flying halfway across the planet is get somewhere and they go, "Oh, this isn't real, this is an actual place, you know, shut down last year," or whatever. So everywhere on that site is constantly updated. So volunteeringukraine.com, and there are contact forms for each of the organizations there and a registration form. And yeah, we need help. We need help all day, every day. I constantly put calls out saying, please, more people come to Lviv, come to Kyiv, come anywhere across Ukraine now. So yeah, that's the way. And then of course you get on to Frontline Kit on Twitter and just reshare everything, because I only post stuff that is important, I believe. You don't have to repost the funny stuff, but yeah, repost the important stuff that's kind of really showing what's going on the ground in Ukraine, because there aren't too many voices that are here all day, every day that can tell you when the missiles are striking or the real situation on the ground itself. And yeah, there aren't many places that can tell you how we actually need the help. There are large organizations, but They have no idea what is going on. The UN, the Red Cross. Yeah, they're here assessing needs and have been for 2 years now. But yeah, it's the people on the ground that go to these places in Kherson and Kharkiv that know what is happening.
I mean, they're
And
busy collecting donations because I
they
get
are.
retargeted in my browser all the time. And yet you speak to Ukrainians and you say, well, okay, well, we've seen a compound full of vehicles, but they don't really seem to go anywhere or do much. And we don't see them on the front lines because their legal coverage and protection of their people doesn't allow them to take those risks. I mean, your average Ukrainian is going to say, well, what the hell are they for? You know, they're not doing a thing for us. And yet they are soaking up money and goodwill.
Yeah, well, at the beginning of the war, they took in a couple of $1 billion or something into the main Red Cross. And then they said, oh, well, this money wasn't actually specified for Ukraine. It wasn't done through the Ukrainian site. So therefore, we'll allocate 2% of it. And it's like, where do you think the extra 2 billion came that you didn't have last year? It's like, you wonder why you have a sudden spike. And then you go, not only can Ukrainians not have it, but we're going to spend it on, the hotels for our Red Cross employees. And I met one in Lviv, and she said, oh, it's horrible. The Red Cross, they put us up in this hotel with this small mini fridge. It's like, how am I meant to store food properly in this mini fridge? So you're in a 5-star hotel and you're complaining like, oh, like this isn't good enough. And I said, what do you do? Oh, I'm assessing needs. In Lviv. What the hell do we need in Lviv? Nothing. We're fine. Thank you. Please leave and put your salary, because they're not volunteers. They're getting paid to be here, and they're, staying in this luxury accommodation, and they're having all their meals and drinks paid for in all these bars, and they're doing absolutely effing nothing. But the thing that wound me and Ernest up the most was when we were down in Kherson and there was a Novakakova dam breach. We were down there for a few weeks at the time. And then obviously you have the Red Cross and you have the UN do a photo shoot convoy. They come in for a day, paddle around for a bit, and then F off. And I was like, you did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. And they came to take photos for the world media because this was finally their chance to show, hey, we're helping in Ukraine. And it was one convoy because we were there. We saw everything. One convoy came in and then effed off. And they're like, yeah, we were international media. Look at this. We've got some footage.
Without rescuing anyone or any cats, dogs, anyone at all. And they just photos and off they go.
Exactly. They did nothing. It was all volunteers going into that water that day. Yeah.
It's horrific. Well, Richard, I'm so grateful to you for sharing these stories. I really, really hope we get to do this again and give people an update, keep Ukraine in the headlines. What you're doing and the many other volunteers is absolutely incredible. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you at the next event. I'm rather hoping you'll agree to be on the volunteer panel at our next event. So
I will be this time.
I'd get Daria
I promise you now, as long as I'm not, somewhere stuck in the front, I will be there. You have my word.
Fantastic. Well, I think the audience will look forward to that. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Have a brilliant weekend. And we everyone on this channel appreciates the incredible things you and your colleagues are doing.
Thank you very much.